Good morning. I'd like to call this first meeting of the House Standing Committee on Postsecondary Education to order. It's good to see everybody here this week, and we get our sleeves rolled up and ready to go to work. I'd like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. And at this time, I'd like to ask Jay to call the roll, please.
Representative Banso.
Present.
Representative Bratcher. Representative Brown. Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Doan.
Present.
Representative Grossel. Representative Massaroni. Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Payne.
Here.
Representative Rourke.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Thompson.
Here.
Representative Truitt.
Here.
Representative Wilner.
Here.
Co-Chair Baker. Here. Chair Tipton.
Chair is here. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like at this time to acknowledge Vice Chair Baker. You have any comments or introductions at this time? And if any of the members like to make introductions, please let us know.
Just excited to be back and ready to get started.
Okay. I do have two introductions. First, we have an intern with the LRC. He's working on the education policy, Rachel Hammonds. If you'll stand up, please. There's Rachel back there. She is from London, Kentucky, and she's a student at Campbellsville University. And let's welcome Rachel with us today. I'd also like to introduce my intern for the session, Clara Heberling. Where are you, Clara? I've lost you there. Well, I've lost her here. But anyway, she is a student at the University of Louisville, majoring in political science and Spanish. She is a resident of Kenton County. She's a sophomore, doing a great job, so we're glad to have her here. She'll probably be here in a minute. We have some others. Representative Grossel has an introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an intern as well with me today from the University of Kentucky, Abby Embry. Abby, why don't you stand up and give a wave? She has been such an asset to me already, and we're just a few days in, so I look forward to her working with me for the rest of session. Abby is from Louisville, but she is an undergrad at the University of Kentucky.
Thank you, Abby, for being here with us. Representative Truitt.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got two interns this session. I've got Mr. Trevor Smith. Stand up there, Trevor. Everybody can see you. Trevor's from EKU. Interested in education policy, wanted to be a teacher one day, and who knows what will end up happening with him, but glad to have Trevor. I've also got Miss Kenley Jones. Kenley, you can stand up there. Kenley is from my hometown there in Jackson County, my neighbor, and she's going to EKU and interested in economics and political science, so glad to have both of them. Thank you.
Next, we have Representative Rourke.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to introduce my interns, and I'll ask them to stand up as I call their names. I have Alex Gully from UK. I have Aniza Ali from U of L, and Kate Phillips from EKU, and I'm very excited to get to be working with all three of them this session, so please make them feel welcome.
Thank you all for being here. Next, we have Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is my pleasure to introduce my interns for this session. First, Ms. Grace Haynes, who's a student at EKU, Eastern Kentucky University. I didn't get what year you in. Sophomore at EKU, okay. And then we have Ms. Sharitha Chantal, who is a student at BCTC. And they're going to be a huge, I'm looking forward to them being a huge asset to me and to my office and what it is that we're doing going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Representative Stalker, do you have an introduction?
I do. Thank you, Chair. Matthias Barbie over here to the left, if you'll stand up. He is from my hometown in Louisville, but is in his senior year at the University of Kentucky and is looking to be an incredible asset to me for this session.
Very good. Now, Representative Banta.
Yes, I'd like to introduce my intern, Robert Butler, if you could please stand. He's a senior at NKU, and he is immersed in Medicare studies. So if you want to give him a hug as you leave today, that'd be really nice. Thank you.
We're glad to have all our interns with us. They are a very valuable asset to us as we help us as we work through the session. And I truly believe this is a great learning experience for them. So we're glad to have all of them. Let's show all of them our appreciation, please. At this time, I'd like to go through our committee rules for the 2026 session. I will administer an oath to all witnesses. There are no signs allowed in committee rooms. If you wish to speak on an item of business, there is a sign-up sheet at the podium in the back. Testimony will be given at the chair's discretion based on time restraints and information already presented. Members, committee substitutes and amendments must be submitted to the committee staff by 7 p.m. on the day before the committee meeting. 7 p.m. on the day before the committee meeting. Okay. Our first item of business is House Bill 96. And at this time, I'm going to turn the chair over to Vice Chair Baker.
Good morning, Chair Tipton. Would you please introduce yourself and any guests you may have?
I am Representative James Tipton. I represent House District 53, which includes Anderson and Spencer County.
Okay, thank you. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back in 2017, the General Assembly passed legislation implementing a performance-based funding model for the state of Kentucky. A work group had met in 2016 prior to that and introduced a set of recommendations that was codified in the statute, so we began this process. Since that time, I believe that we have seen a lot of improvement in a lot of the metrics in completion rates and degrees, especially in underrepresented communities. We have made some adjustments to the model over time. If any of you all have institutions, universities, colleges in your areas that you represent, you may have heard of them. There seems to be some discussion that maybe it's time to revisit the model, take a look at it, see what works, what does not work, and maybe possibly make some changes. With that in mind, I have filed House Bill 96. This bill is somewhat similar to legislation that I presented in this committee. It passed out of the House last year. It did not move in the Senate. And what House Bill 96 will do currently, it's dealing with the makeup of the working group for the performance-based funding work group. Currently, there is one member from the House and one member from the Senate that serves on that work group. I believe that we need to have more members of the General Assembly involved in this process so we have more people that have the knowledge and develop the institutional knowledge of how this model works and that can contribute as we go forward. So what this legislation would do, there would be 5 members from the House, 5 members from the Senate. Now, Representative Rourke, there will be 4 members from the House appointed by the Speaker and 1 member appointed by the Minority Floor Leader. In the Senate, there will be 4 members recommended by the Senate President and 1 member by the Senate Floor Leader. The Governor or his appointee would stay the same. The 9 presidents or 8 public post-secondary institutions and the president of the KCTCS would stay on this work group as voting members. We would have the president of CPE will serve on the work group as chair of the work group, but be a non-voting member. So there would be 20 members on this work group. Now, there is some significance to that. Currently, the university presidents cannot really get together and talk about this together because in the past, based on the number of members, they make up a quorum of the work group, so there would be a violation of open meeting laws. There are 20 voting members. There are 9 university presidents, so this will enable them to have an opportunity to get together even when the work group's not meeting and discuss ideas. And it's my goal. The universities can get together, work out some of the differences and disagreements they have ahead of time that we can discuss in the work group then. One other change in the legislation, it currently talks about the work group meeting in a fiscal year. That is from July to June. I've changed the language to a calendar year because I think that is more practical to have it from a January to December and then have a recommendation for the following General Assembly to discuss if there is a recommendation. And it did not change the fact that it meet every 3 years. The legislation does carry an emergency clause. We're hopeful to get this out early so that the work group can get to work on our model to have a presentation to make to the 27 General Assembly. That's pretty much what's in the bill. I'll be happy to entertain any questions from the members.
Representative Roarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Tipton, for incorporating some of the feedback that you heard from members from last year. And I think the goal of creating more institutional knowledge amongst legislators is really critical for advancing post-secondary education. And if we're going to find a solution to the performance-based funding model, I think it's really critical. What would you say, though, for kind of the thought around adding more legislative members, maybe creating a lot of influence amongst that body, where we have the final say here when we come back into session? What kind of are your thoughts about maybe what that workflow will look like?
Well, I'm hopeful we can get going early, and I suspect there are going to be a lot of different ideas proposed, a lot of different suggestions, maybe to tweaks. There might even be a possible of reworking the entire model, maybe to something that's different, that's more appropriate for the time that we live in. Because as you understand, we're in changing times. When this work group was modeled since then, we're seeing more emphasis on credentials, things like that. So I'm very hopeful that we can present this. And, yes, half of the members are the members of the work group would be members of the legislature. That's not enough to pass a resolution. Somebody said, "Why did you have an even number?" Well, if it's 10-10, it fails, and I don't want an 11-9 vote on this. My hope is that we come to a consensus that we can move forward for what's best for the state.
Thank you.
Okay, and Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. I share Rep. Roarks's concerns about maybe over-politicization, especially we have such an imbalance in the makeup of the House and the Senate currently, and so that concerns me. And I hear you say that the legislators wouldn't have a deciding vote, and I appreciate that. I also really applaud the idea of having it be that these university presidents can meet together without breaking the law by having a quorum. So I would be really interested in seeing maybe people who weren't legislators, who weren't politicians, added to this group to bring that balance rather than it being so heavily loaded and potentially political. The other question I have is about the change from the fiscal year, which mirrors the academic year, to the calendar year, which does not mimic the academic year. And I wonder if there's what your thoughts are about that.
Well, one reason I changed it to a calendar year is I want the work group to meet immediately. I'd like to see us get out early and maybe start the work group in February this time. And I just think it's more practical to go to a calendar year because you've got a work group that's meeting in July to June. Possibly they'd be meeting after a session's over with. And I just think this will give the work group more time, a full 12 months, right before a session. On the idea of politicization, I don't know of a single issue up here. We deal in public policy, but public policy is political. And no offense to my colleagues behind me, friends behind me, if you think universities aren't involved in politics, they are. They're here, they have a voice, they have an opportunity to talk to us, to meet with us. And again, my goal is we have a 20-0 recommendation would be my goal. But I appreciate your comments on outside entities. Thank you.
Looks like we have.
Representative Baker.
Yes.
Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Bratcher. Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Decker.
Yes.
Representative Doan,
Aye.
Representative Grossel,
Yes.
Representative Massaroni,
Yes.
Representative McCool,
Yes.
Representative Payne,
Yes.
Representative Rourke,
Yes.
Representative Stalker,
Yes.
Representative Thompson,
Yes.
Representative Truitt,
Yes.
Representative Wilner.
I'd like to explain my no vote. I will be voting no today, but I reserve the option to change my vote to a yes on the House floor. I just need to study this a little more. Thank you.
Representative Tipton.
Yes.
House Bill 96 passes with the expression of opinion that the same should pass on the House floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. The next item on the agenda today is the House Bill 94. It is being presented today for discussion only, so there will be no vote taken on this legislation today. So Representative Grossel, please go to the table with any guests that you have with you. Thank you. Please make sure your microphones are turned on and close to you. Introduce yourself for the record, and I will administer the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Vanessa Grossel, House District 88.
Travis Powell, Executive Vice President, General Counsel, Council on Postsecondary Education.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I do.
Please proceed, Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for extending us grace for yet another hearing on this piece of legislation. I also want to thank the co-sponsors of this bipartisan piece of legislation, Representative George Brown, thank you very much, and also Representative T.J. Roberts, who is not on this committee of jurisdiction. I'm going to hand this over first to Travis to provide an overview, just to put us back where we were in December when we came before you to talk about this, and then I'd like to make a few comments after that, please.
Thank you, Representative Grossel. Yeah, just to sort of set where we're at, those of you all that were at the Interim Joint Committee on Education Committee meeting in December, we essentially had this discussion about the bill, and the bill that was in your materials, I think, ended up being the bill that was actually filed. But just to sort of hit some of the high points on the presentation that was in your materials from the last meeting, about 30% of KCTCS students transfer to four-year institutions. Now, all the KCTCS students that start at KCTCS aren't necessarily intending to transfer, but just to give you an idea about how many students transfer from KCTCS institutions, to about 30% onto four-year institutions, and about half of those actually get a degree. We talked a little bit about credits to degree between at our institutions, transfer students versus native students. Saw some variation in there, pretty small, but some variation in number of credits to degree between transfer students and native students, both 2-year to 4-year and 4-year to 4-year. Not big differences, but some differences there. And I think some of the institutions have provided you all with some information outlining how that's working on their individual campuses since that last meeting. KCTCS manages about 350 transfer agreements with public institutions, so it's a lot for them to manage. But that does show that they are interacting with each other and working on issues of transfer. We looked at the top majors that we see for transfer degrees. We had a list of those in the presentation, but just to give you the top 3 for psychology, bachelor's in science and nursing, and social work were the degrees that we see the most transfer on between both 2-year to 4-year and 4-year to 4-year. We talked about a definition of statewide transfer pathways, which is what this bill seeks to accomplish. What a statewide transfer pathway is a common course in degree plans between institutions from the first 60 hours of a major. It's sort of the next step of general education transfer that we have in current legislation, which requires that that general education courses transfer both 2-year to 4-year and 4-year to 4-year. This is sort of the next step of that, which talks about major specific courses in that first 60 hours, ensuring that those transfer between institutions, again, 4-year to 4-year and 2-year to 4-year. We gave some examples from Louisiana, which they have a program where it will show you the credits you have to take in the first 60 hours based on the program, and then a list of institutions on the left that you can take those courses at, and then on the right as to where they would transfer to. So it's very transparent and very open. So the legislation that we're having for discussion today says that the council, public universities, and KCTCS institutions shall collaborate to develop statewide transfer pathways, as I described them. They would be selected based on student and workforce demand and existing commonalities between learning outcomes in the first 60 hours among current bachelor degree programs. Again, those that are high demand both from the student and the workforce perspective. And then participation in each transfer pathway would be at the discretion of each institution. So we had a pathway. Some institutions determined that they needed to be exempt from this because they had certain courses in those first 60 hours that they felt were unique to their program that perhaps would build upon for those 300 and 400 level courses, those upper level courses that they needed for their program. They did not necessarily have to participate in the pathway if they didn't want to, but they would have to list the courses for transparency purposes to show which ones did not transfer. And we would manage the pathways with those participating institutions. So that's sort of a summary of the legislation, and Representative Grossel, I'll kick it back over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for being here with me and explaining it. I wanted to take you back to where we started on this and let you understand the work that's been done so far to date. And so when I first started working on this in 2025, it was actually with Representative McCool, who had taken me under his wing as a new lawmaker, and we were considering a version of the statewide course numbering system that is often cited as the national gold standard for seamless transfer, and it has produced great success in states like Florida and other states as well, Texas, Arkansas, Nevada. From the beginning, I sought to collaborate with both the universities and the Council on Postsecondary Education to complement rather than attempt to replace or complicate the work that has already been done on over 350 transfer pathways that are in existence between KCTCS and our 4-year institutions. I was disappointed when none of the 4-year institutions were willing to come to the table to offer ideas on how to improve the version of this bill that passed out of committee and passed the full House unanimously on February 20th of 2025. And that was House Bill 427. So I want to thank every one of you in this room for voting for it. This would have made participating in the pathways identified by CPE mandatory for each public institution. And the pathways we're speaking about here are those that Travis just spoke of, which have been identified by CPE based on existing commonalities in programs, based on workforce demand, and also student demand. And so it is those professions like teaching, nursing, psychology, and social work. And by now, you all know how this played out. The Senate ultimately asked that we have a discussion over this during the interim and give everyone just a little more time to digest it. And so this is a David and Goliath story, folks, and I'm here to work to make college more affordable while reducing red tape on behalf of our Kentucky families. When House Bill 427 passed last year, I was quoted saying, "If we make our public higher education institutions cooperative and student-friendly, our students will have a better chance of navigating degree programs. Our public institutions should work with one another to address the state's workforce needs. But too often, the universities compete with one another in a way that puts our students at a disadvantage. Student circumstances change, and they should be encouraged to remain in school until degree completion. If they need to move or transfer to another university, House Bill 47 would have ensured that students receive the college credits they earned and paid for from another accredited Kentucky university if they transfer to another state institution while pursuing the same or a similar high-demand degree. The Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence applauded our work on this and issued a letter highlighting 4 main reasons for their support. It eliminates credit loss during transfer, creates clear transfer pathways, reduces time and cost to degree completion, and strengthens Kentucky's workforce. The Pritchard Committee highlighted in their 2025 Big Bold Future report that Kentucky faces significant challenges in post-secondary achievement, ranking 46th in post-secondary enrollment, 44th in associate degree or higher attainment, and 46th in median household income, all challenges they believe that this piece of legislation will help remedy. Yet some of our universities remain opposed. Make no mistake, this is common sense legislation for every Kentucky parent who has ever paid tuition, or every Kentucky student like me who worked their way through college or has paid off student loan debt. I am here today to send a clear message to our public universities that not a single dollar of state funding that goes toward dual credit, keys, or any student scholarships should ever be wasted or taken for granted. And also, time is money. Reducing time to degree by even 1 semester or a couple of classes is meaningful work that adds up. Think of the number of students this would impact. It allows our students to complete degrees and get out into the workforce to earn a living wage for their families. This year's Transfer Pathways Bill, House Bill 94, is very similar. It seeks to make transfer more seamless for 2-year to 4-year and 4-year to 4-year transfer. And a lot of work has already been done over the years. This is especially exciting for me, and I feel critical and monumental for those 4-year to 4-year transfers across these high-demand pathways in particular. And make no mistake, this is not meant for every single degree program at universities, only for those that have been identified by CPE. This bill empowers CPE to oversee the process. It is not happening right now at the 4-year to 4-year level in these most high-demand pathways. And while all of the KCTCS institution agreements that have been signed are valuable, remember they are all one-offs. Kentucky students should be able to transfer from Moorhead to EKU, from EKU to Western, Northern Kentucky University, or any other public institution in our Commonwealth seamlessly. Travis told you last month that 64% of students who transfer from a 2-year institution to a 4-year institution transfer without a degree. In fact, only 40% of those who transfer to a 4-year institution graduate, significantly below the native student population. And we know that in Kentucky, our degree completion rate is about 10% below the national average. Of course, like everything in education, this is nuanced, and this is not an end-all be-all. There's a lot of anecdotal data that is not being collected or reported because every student situation is different. Ask yourselves how many credits universities are not counting toward degrees. We hear stories all the time from people we serve of classes being counted as electives but not toward degree programs. And there are courses that are not even counted as electives. They don't even appear when universities report out the total number of credits to degree. This data point alone sends signals that we have a lot of work to do still to streamline transfer, particularly in these high demand pathways. And for our high school counselors and students, parents, advisors, no centralized system currently exists for accessing information on what transfers to where and what doesn't. The universities don't publish this information. So this piece of legislation would eliminate ambiguity and make this information public, accessible, and useful, particularly between and among those four-year institutions, so that students and families can map out their pathways and more effectively map out the cost of their educations. The universities are going to show you the average number of credits students graduate with, but again, those averages do not accurately represent the students that universities did not allow for transfer or those who are specifically enrolled in these high-demand pathways that this legislation seeks to address. You cannot simply lump them into a chart with all other students on your campus. Never mind that when a student graduates with more than 120 credit hours, time and money have likely been wasted. Transfer has been something that has been on a continuous improvement plan by this legislative body for years. I would argue that 2010 legislation for general ed transfers has paved the way for the success that we are seeing today in the data that will be shared by our universities. But I assure you we can do better, especially in these high-demand programs where workers are needed today. Just like last year, House Bill 94 requires all universities to be a part of the process, to come to the table collaboratively to discuss each pathway, guided by CPE. But in the spirit of collaboration, we decided in this year's version of the bill to let each university decide whether to opt in or opt out of each specific pathway, citing their reasons and which courses would or would not transfer for transparency's sake. And like I said earlier, publishing that so that students and their advisors can account for it. I expected that over the interim, the universities would come in to discuss and collaborate so that we could make this even stronger and address any concerns. But still, the research institutions have been unwilling, frankly, to share why they're against it. You know, we teach our students to never stop striving for excellence, to practice continuous self-improvement. The Japanese call it kaizen. I challenge the universities to strive for excellence in serving our students and addressing college affordability. Do not let your institutional egos undermine student success. Resist your urge to oppose being governed by the Council on Postsecondary Education, the very coordinating body that is statutorily in charge of guiding your work, so that you as institutions are not working in silos. CPE is tasked with ensuring quality, monitoring accountability, student success, affordability, and workforce alignment. And this bill would empower them to take the reins on transfer pathways for these high-demand programs. Look, transfer is a huge puzzle, and yes, a statewide course numbering system would also be beneficial, but these two ideas are not mutually exclusive. They complement one another. It isn't either or, it's both. We need all of you and your provosts to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. Our students in this Commonwealth deserve it. This piece of legislation is just another tool in students' toolboxes. It will enable the Postsecondary Education Committee to request reports and updates on how this is going from CPE, ensuring that the process stays on track regardless of changes in administrations at the universities or at CPE. It closes gaps, increases degree completion, and ensures that dual credit counts for something other than an elective. Some students start programs knowing that they will want to or need to transfer. So many in high school begin with dual credit without a clear understanding of whether it will even count for them in college. Transparency and collaboration are just as important as program integrity. If you want us to be proscriptive, we can certainly include sections that address standards, quality teaching, student performance, and timing to ensure that learning outcomes are met. This is not about accomplishing the goal through sacrificing quality. As I wrap up today, let me remind my colleagues that no one opposes this except for a few of our public institutions of higher education. I urge them to do the right thing, to be a team player instead of acting out of selfishness and self-interest. Stop trying to run out the clock and buy time on this issue now that we are back in session. You have had a year to collaborate on this, and the vast majority of you have been silent. Come to the stand and tell us why you oppose this legislation so that we can get on with our business of moving this forward in a meaningful way that supports Kentucky students and families. I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Grossell and Travis. I do have a few questions for you, Representative Grossell and Travis. You're not going to feel left out. I've got one for you too. Looking on page 2 of House Bill 94, and you mentioned this, I'm looking at section 2, subsection C1. And the very end of that first sentence says that any participating public university, so it's just for clarification, as you said, a university can choose to opt in or opt out of this program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Along that line, at the bottom of the page, subsection 4 down there, and I'm just going to read this real quick. A public institution offering a baccalaureate program that would otherwise be included in a statewide transfer pathway, but is not participating due to limited alignment in student learning outcomes, shall identify those courses in the pathway that will not be eligible for credit in a core course requirement and publish the list of courses on the institution's website. It goes on to say the council shall publish a website. So as I understand this, a university could they partially be part of this process, but have certain programs that, due to whatever standards that don't qualify, but they have to publish that. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct. All universities, public institutions would be at the table to discuss this process and collaborate on it, but that would not obligate them to participate in each pathway. Ultimately, they have a choice. Do you have anything else to add?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
I'm glad I understood that. Travis, we're going to do a 30-year history lesson this morning.
Okay.
I'm going to read a statute that was first passed in 1976 and went into effect on May 30 of 1997. It's KRS 164.583, titled Lower Division Academic Courses Transfers of Credit. It says each community college, the KCTC system, may offer within the 2-year academic curriculum of the college any and all lower division academic courses offered for undergraduate credit at any and all of the 4-year public colleges and universities. Subsection 2 says all lower division academic courses offered by the community colleges shall be transferable for academic credit to any and all 4-year public colleges and universities. Now, as I understand this is talking about the KCTC system, not 4 to 4.
Right.
But the credit would transfer, but it could possibly transfer as an elective and not a general course requirement. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct.
And is this part of the reason why we're talking about House Bill 94, that sometimes they take these courses at a 2-year, but when they go to the 4-year, it doesn't count toward the general ed credit. They have to take those courses over again or take other courses. Am I reading into that correctly?
So the general ed courses would transfer.
Okay.
It's the House Bill 94 really addresses the issues of those major specific courses. So
Sure.
Most majors have required courses in the 100 and 200 level, the first 60 hours, as well as obviously the 3rd and 4th year as well. So what this would do would ensure that those courses in the major would transfer outside of just the general education credits that would transfer. So those do transfer. The law requires that. The law passed in 2010 requires that. This is sort of the next step that would just include that the majors that are chosen as part of this program, that those 100 and 200 level courses would be outlined that you need to take that would transfer into that major when the student transfers.
Representative Grossley, you mentioned the 2010 legislation. I believe that was House Bill 160 from the 2010 session. I've been reviewing that this morning, and members encourage you to review that legislation as we continue this discussion. We have a couple of members who signed up for questions. Representative Payne.
Thank you for this testimony. One question that I had is you made a comment about that there was maybe no public posting of which credits transferred where, and I think it's important that if there are specific institutions that applies to, do you mind to name those? Because I work with high school students every day, and usually we're able to go to the institution's website, type in the credit of where it's going from, and then we're able to find that information. So I just wondered if there were specific institutions that the state of Kentucky is not doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Appreciate that. This is anecdotally on my part. It's not an issue that I am intimately involved in helping students transfer, but I have heard from high school counselors who struggle in dual credit situations, in particular in figuring out where the student is planning to go to college and whether this coursework is going to count towards something other than an elective when they do so.
Follow up, Representative, please proceed.
Yes, please. Thank you. I think that we could definitely probably look at like a one-stop shop, that maybe a portal where students could find that for any institution. But I just want to make sure to point out that our institutions are posting that information, and from my experience, and that is public. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that as individual institutions they're doing that. Maybe we could just find a way to pull that all together. But great point. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Representative Bratcher.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. I did have a question for you concerning, it appears that University of Kentucky had submitted a bill or some suggestions to your bill that would fix some of their concerns, but they didn't collaborate, or you weren't interested in hearing them out. Can you explain what their suggestions were and why they wouldn't fit into this bill?
The University of Kentucky came to me at the end of last week, and I said to them during our meeting that I would consider it. I'm still open for it. That's why we're doing this as hearing only. I would love to come back to you with another version, and I'm here today to listen to the universities and see what other suggestions they have. I'm sad that it took the University of Kentucky that long, about a year, to come to me with an idea, just as we're ramping up here to get started on so many important issues.
Chairman, one other question.
Please proceed.
And then I noticed on the bill you had removed post-secondary education, CPE, I think. Was CPE removed from this? Are they involved in this as far as monitoring it, or is it just the universities themselves that will kind of police themselves?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. So the whole genesis for this is to have CPE be the overseer of this process, because right now universities are operating largely in silos as it relates to things beyond these general ed requirements. And so we want to streamline all of this in a process that's overseen by CPE.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I have a question from Representative Banta.
Forgive me if you covered this, but when a university offers kind of a unicorn program and someone wants to transfer into the unicorn program, are they exempt from that? They don't have,
That's a great question, and that's one of those examples whereby allowing the universities to opt into the pathways that they want to participate in with CP's guidance. It allows them to say our program is a unicorn. It's really unique for these specific reasons, and that's why we're not participating on that particular pathway. Or we are participating, but here are 2 or 3 classes that may not transfer. Or that students may have to take if they do transfer into their university because it's a part of their core curriculum. Am I describing that right, Travis? You can add to it, please.
Yeah, no, I think that's you've stated it correctly. And I mean, if it was just a one-off, what Representative Grossel was mentioning is, uniquenesses. Even though the major might be common, there might be uniquenesses within that major at that institution that would make it different. That would require different courses in that 100 and 200 level. Even though there are commonalities amongst, the degree programs amongst the institutions. And maybe what you're mentioning is that one-off program that's maybe only offered at 1 or 2 institutions, period. Those would not be part of this process at all. So if you're that unique and it's a program that's only offered maybe at 1 or 2 institutions, we would not probably include that in this program, because one of the things that we have to look at is existing commonalities amongst the institutions, and if there's only 2 that are doing it, we'd probably not even include that at all as part of the process.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So I'm thinking just education. You want to produce a high school math teacher. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you want them to pass the praxis, so everybody's probably on the same boat. Mm-hmm. If a student wants to, is that kind of what you're saying? So you would opt into that, but not maybe bioluminescence.
Yeah, something. Yeah, right. That would be correct. And the other example that I get, so for education, and and in taking a look, and I will say this too, Representative Grossel, the legislation you all passed last session has prompted a lot of discussion with our institutions. So we have transfer pathway work groups together. So there has been a lot of discussion in the interim about looking at this issue. And so I think there's been a lot of process there that I think has been good. But the example that I gave is, for example, let's say if an institution, let's say we're looking at biology, for example, and all the institutions offer a biology degree. But let's say our research institutions, and again, I'm just making this up, but for argument's sake, it may be true, that they're really working on focusing their biology degrees to prep people to go to medical school, let's say, for example. And let's say that some of our comprehensive universities are still sending folks to med school, but they have more of a practitioner focused in biology. So they may have different courses at the 100 and 200 level that at UK and U of L, for example, that they feel like they need to help get those students prepared, maybe in math perhaps, to take the MCAT and go to medical school. Maybe the other institutions aren't as focused on that. And so that way students, they may opt out of the pathway and say, well, here's what we offer, but these 2 courses, if you transfer to UK and U of L, you need these 2 courses in order to get a biology degree at the 100 and 200 level. So you need to make sure and take those. If you take a different math at other institutions, it won't transfer. So that they would be excluded because of the uniqueness in their program, even though their program is the same major as some of the other institutions. So there'd be that transparency piece there that students would be able to see what would transfer and what wouldn't. So maybe they hold off on taking, when they do transfer, taking that math course until they arrive at the institution, so they don't take the wrong math for that major.
Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up.
Just because it's you.
So right now, are we saying that universities aren't doing that? Do we have the data where kids are when comparing apples to apples, they aren't being able to connect that dot?
In some instances, there are differences. I will tell you that we're still in part of this analysis, and we're finding that courses are already programs are already very much aligned. There aren't a lot of differences in those programs. So one of the things that we're doing is just taking a look at all the some of these high demand programs that we have, taking a look at the curriculum and seeing where the commonalities already are. There may not need to be a lot of changes made. We're still digging into that now. Institutions have shown the credits to degree roughly similar between institutions. That's at a broad level, not based on the major, so we're still digging into that. But when we look at this, and some of it may open up eyes to say, well, we weren't accepting this, but now that we look at the learning outcomes for these courses, now we see that we can, so then they can start accepting those. So we're still in the process of doing that, but all the institutions are at the table for that analysis. We've done a lot of work already, but regardless of what passes or doesn't pass in this session, I think we're all committed to working on it and to trying to help students reduce the number of hours to transfer and make it easier for students.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have one more member signed up to speak. We have 5 groups that have asked to speak on this, so I'll ask the members. Let's hold off. Maybe we can ask questions later to the other groups. Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a really helpful discussion. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to clarify about the opt-in, opt-out. They would give reasons for why they're choosing to opt out. Could the Council on Post-Secondary Education say, we don't like those reasons, you cannot opt out, or is it totally up to the universities to make those decisions?
Ultimately, no. I mean, I think we would encourage, in doing that analysis and encourage them to, to be included. But if they have legitimate reasons not to, and we can see that, then, we would be supportive of that. We don't want to make institutions retrofit their programs if they're really meeting the needs of their students. So we wouldn't do that. We would just have that discussion. But at the end of the day, it would be their choice. Mm-hmm.
Representative Grossell, Travis, thank you for your testimony. The first group that we have signed up is the University of Louisville. And we have Katie Cardelli and Gail DePoy. If you all please come. Everybody come, please. Make sure those green lights are on your microphones, and make sure they are pulled close to you. Sometimes we have a hard time hearing, so please identify yourself for the record, and I will minister the oath.
Good morning, Chair Tipton. My name is Katie Cardarelli. I serve as the provost at the University of Louisville.
Good morning. I'm Gail DePuy. I serve as the senior vice provost at the University of Louisville.
I'm Nick Peak in Government Relations.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm a testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Chair Tipton, members of the committee. In the interest of time, we will keep our remarks brief. As we noted in our communication that we sent to each of you all last night, the issue that this bill seeks to address from our perspective is not clearly defined or supported by current graduation data. U of L is the top transfer destination in the Commonwealth, so this is an incredibly important issue for us. For our Kentucky residents, as you saw last night, transfer students are actually graduating more efficiently than native students, and we have not seen data to credibly challenge this evidence to date. U of L funds 3 FTE staff members who work directly on KCTCS campuses such as JCTC and ECTC, and these pre-enrollment advisors ensure that KCTCS students take the exact courses needed to map directly onto a U of L degree, reducing any transfer shock or credit loss. A number of the provosts, by my recollection, all of the provosts in Kentucky met last year, at the end of last year, to discuss this bill. We all agreed that we can improve transfer pathways, and we will continue to work together to do so. But my recollection of that conversation, which did include CPE, did not include any support for this bill. As I said, we are the top destination in the state, so this is an incredibly important issue for us. We urge the committee to table House Bill 94 so that universities can work with you and Representative Grossell to define the specific problem before mandating a legislative fix. We've not had that opportunity yet to meet with Representative Grossell. We are committed to helping our students to succeed and to growing the workforce in Kentucky. I'll ask Senior Vice Provost to just sort of give a quick summary of that data that we sent to you.
Sure. Thank you. So as you received last night, and as Provost Cardarelli already mentioned, we have seen that the number of credit hours that our graduates have, both that are native students, and meaning that they start at the University of Louisville, compared to those who transfer into the University of Louisville, either from a 2-year or a 4-year, are very comparable. And in some cases, actually, the transfer students graduate with fewer credit hours than the native students. There's lots of reasons for how many credit hours it takes a student to graduate. It depends on when they decide on their major, when they decide on minors, other majors, certificates, many other, they are seeking multiple credentials in many cases. And so all this feeds into the decisions about what classes they take, when they take them, and how many credit hours it takes them to graduate.
The one thing I would add is that all of our degrees have degree mapping online, and you can see all the courses that you need to graduate. And in addition, Kentucky and the other post-secondary education schools within the state participate in TES, which is the Transfer Equivalency System, TES. So you can put in any credit in any course that you're taking at any school and see what it will transfer for at any other school and what the course equivalency is at those schools, and whether that does transfer in as just an elective or what courses that you may need and what it may transfer for that will help you towards graduation. So going to Representative Payne's question earlier, those systems are out there, and perhaps that is something that we can do as institutions is work to publicize that better so that students, and I've talked with students on our campus who are aware of that, but maybe we just need to get the word out more about that to some students on off chances they may be having difficulty with transfer.
Chair Tipton, thank you for this opportunity. We're happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate that clarification because I think transparency is essential. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And students, when they're making decisions about post-secondary and life decisions, they need to have all the information available to them so they know what it's going to take to get to reach their objective, to reach their goal. So appreciate that. Do you all have any records on how many students who transfer to U of L with credits that do not count toward the course or program, that only count as electives?
I don't have those. No, I don't have those.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Representative Grossell.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. My question is in alignment with what the Chairman just asked, but I'm curious, in the data you presented us with in your 11th hour email last night, you did not include the credits that simply you did not accept for transfer, whether as an elective or as counting toward a degree program. And so do you have data on the number of credits that you're just simply not counting for students?
We can definitely work with our institutional research team, Representative Grossell, to try to get that information to you. I don't have that with me today, but as Senior Vice Provost just said, the circumstances under which our students come to us are quite diverse, from switching majors to wanting to get a minor or a certificate. So all these factors do have to also be considered. Happy to look into that for you.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Briefly, please.
I just want to note for the record that you have not requested to meet with me since this legislative session began, except for in regard to a funding request that the University of Louisville has. However, I know that you have been walking the halls talking with other committee members, and I would have appreciated, in that spirit of collaboration, if you had reached out to me first with any ideas or concerns about my legislation. Thank you.
Just in response to that, President Bradley and I did meet with Representative Grossell over the summer, and then the meeting request was about a whole list of issues, not just a funding request that we made. And we did not know that the bill was going to be on the agenda today before we made that request.
Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next group is from the University of Kentucky. I'll put my glasses on here. Rob Edwards and Sarah Ballard, if y'all come to the table. Please identify, make sure those those lights are on green and pull close to you, and identify yourself for the record, and I'll administer the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob Edwards, Vice President of Strategy for the University of Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarah Ballard, Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management at the University of Kentucky.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Grossell. Thank you to the entire committee. We are committed, as I believe all the universities are, to serve every student that comes before us. We make a commitment, Representative Grossell, as you would want us to, if you provide us with student names, parent names of individuals who we can serve better, we will reach out and serve them and work with them to maximize their credit, the efficiency of their degree, and completing a degree as quickly as possible. We'll also use those types of examples for us to learn about ourselves and the system in general across the state. We need and we want the Council on Postsecondary Education to continue to facilitate data collection across all universities so we can continue to best understand this problem. And we congratulate and thank the Kentucky Community Technical College system for their work over the last 12 to 18 months with us in these efforts. Serving these Kentuckians, serving these students is what we do every day, and we can commit to continuing to do that. Understanding the problem is key. I'm going to ask Sarah to talk about that because there are other variables in this equation, of course.
Thank you, Rob. The University of Kentucky appreciates Representative Grossel's advocacy for Kentucky students and the collaborative conversations that we've had on transfer policy and student success. I'd also like to acknowledge Representative Payne, your service for our Kentucky high school students. On behalf of UK and my colleagues across the Commonwealth working every day to improve the student experience, we thank you. We share your commitment to building efficient, seamless pathways that help students achieve their goals and enter the workforce confidently. To that end, we would like to continue working directly with the committee and with Representative Grossel to use shared data to identify our transfer barriers and address them in a targeted, effective way. This is work that we are already doing, and we remain fully committed to advancing it for the good of our students and for the Commonwealth. Kentucky has made meaningful progress through more than a decade of direct institutional partnerships between our 2-year institutions and our 4-year institutions. By aligning curricula, clarifying credit applicability, and reducing time to degree, we've shown what practitioner-driven collaboration can achieve. But we also recognize that some students may encounter friction points that slow their progress. Addressing those challenges requires a clearer understanding of where the problems actually exist, which is why data must drive the next phase of policy development. Without that clarity, House Bill 94 proposes a solution before identifying the problem and risks creating new administrative layers that do not improve our student outcomes. The most successful transfer improvements in Kentucky have come from direct institutional partnerships. The efficiency of the 2-year to 4-year pathways demonstrated in the data is a direct result of sustained and intentional collaboration to create seamless pathways under the General Education Transfer Agreement. Even when a pathway might not exist, we are working hard every single day to ensure that every credit counts for our transfer students. Our internal review of total credit accumulation shows that for our Kentucky residents transferring into the University of Kentucky, regardless of their native institution, all of that coursework is applied toward degree requirements, including major and program requirements, departmental requirements, or general education elective requirements. It is all counting. This tells us that students are not losing earned prior credit. Excess credit, which for our Kentucky residents transferring from a 4-year public university is around 9 credit hours or 3 courses, usually results from student-driven changes. Maybe they've switched their academic program, they've added a major, they've added a minor. Perhaps they're participating in a credit-bearing internship to prepare them for the workforce. Students change their minds, and we know this, and we actively work across our institutions to ensure that they don't lose their prior credit when they do. UK and our partner institutions stand ready to work with this committee and Representative Grossel and CPE to build a shared statewide data-informed understanding of our transfer barriers, to identify those specific friction points for our students, to co-design evidence-based practitioner-driven solutions that improve our outcomes, and to continuously evaluate progress to ensure that the policies deliver measurable benefits for our students and their families. This collaborative data-first approach is the best way to ensure that we are acting in our students' best interest to help them maximize prior credit, complete their degrees efficiently, and meet the needs of Kentucky's workforce. For these reasons, we respectfully ask to continue working with CPE and Representative Grossell to ensure the success of Kentucky's students. We pledge to continue this work with urgency, with transparency, and with partnership for the good of all of our students and for the Commonwealth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all for your testimony. I do have a question for you based on your most recent comments. I've been doing a little quick math in my head, and I understand the timeline of getting legislation passed. I would say in order to comfortably get a bill out of the House and have it time to get to the Senate in this session, we're looking at about 7 weeks, March the 10th. Do you all feel like it's possible that you and the other institutions and Representative Grossell can get together over the next 6 to 7 weeks and possibly come up with a compromise, a solution that will work for both parties?
Mr. Chairman, we will certainly commit to trying to do so.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony. I'm going to call our next two presenters up together because they're both names Jennifer. We have Jennifer Smith from Western Kentucky University and Jenny Sand from NKU, and also for time. So please identify yourself for the record. I will swear you in. You can present your testimony.
Jennifer Smith with Western Kentucky University.
Jenny Sand with Northern Kentucky University.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please present. Go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Tipton, Vice Chair Baker, and members of the committee for allowing me to speak with you today. As I said, I'm Jennifer Smith with Western Kentucky University. Can you hear me okay? I can get this closer. So student transfer is an important issue that Kentucky's public universities have been working on for several years. I would like to share with the committee the steps WKU has taken to make transfer easier and more seamless for students. WKU has a transfer center established as a one-stop shop for any student wanting to transfer. Thank you, Representative Payne, for that exact words. That's what I had written. The transfer assists students with transfer admission, credit evaluation, and advising. Our transfer center website has a link that shows how each course will transfer to WKU, providing complete transparency for our students. And that is at the very top of the page. You can't miss it. In degree programs, to speak a little bit to electives, we do have specific courses that are required for a degree program. There are also courses that are referred to as electives. Basically, you have a pool of classes where students can choose what their interest is in, and that applies to your 4-year degree. So a lot of times when we hear courses are only transferring as an elective, that term elective sometimes gets a bad rap. Those electives are still required for your degree program and for your completion. So I wanted just to make that very clear that while you may see this course only transferred as an elective, well, the student was going to have to take an elective anyways. So it still fits the degree program that is required. We have established 3 different transfer student scholarships ranging anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 depending on the student's GPA. We have signed a transfer agreement with KCTCS, which applies to all KCTCS colleges. We have developed 40 transfer pathways so far with KCTCS to make transfer seamless for students, and all of those are also listed on that Transfer Center website. So students know in their very first semester exactly the courses they need to be taking to be able to transfer without losing any credit along the way. We have created a transfer student living learning community, which is designed to help students connect socially, succeed academically, and engage with faculty and staff. In addition, WKU holds semi-annual meetings with KCTCS advisors to stay on top of any changes that there might be in curriculum. We have WKU advisors that spend time at KCTCS schools to be an additional resource when advising students. so that they make the best decisions that they possibly can. Just to briefly talk about, universities really do not work in silos anymore. CPE has many work groups that different members of universities serve on. One of those being the transfer work group that has all of the experts from all the universities, KCTCS and CPE, on that work group to make sure that we are doing what we can to make things as easy for students as possible. So the one concern that I have, well, and I hope that this gives you just a quick snapshot of what we're doing at WKU. And I just want to say that currently we have flexibility to tailor courses or to tailor those transfer credits for our students. Our concern with House Bill 94 is that will take some of that flexibility away from us being able to work specifically with the students on how each course that they have taken will transfer. University autonomy is very important, especially to the comprehensive universities. As the General Assembly has told us many times, we don't want every single university to look identical. We want you all to have your niche. We want you to have your autonomy. And that is just a very important piece for comprehensive universities. I did share WKU's data with the committee yesterday. And as you will see from that data, on average, our students finish their degree within 4 years. And when comparing transfer credit hours from KCTCS, there's a difference of 2 credit hours between students that start at WKU and students that transfer in. So I hope this shows that we are doing everything we possibly can to make transfer as easy on students as possible. And so to be mindful of the committee's time, I'm going to end my comments there, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you all again for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Jenny Sand, Executive Director of Government and Community Relations. I would like to begin by thanking the sponsor of House Bill 94 for her commitment to student success and for keeping the issue of transfer efficiency front and center. Ensuring that students can move between institutions without unnecessary barriers is a goal we all share. Kentucky's public universities are deeply engaged in the work of supporting transfer students and have been for the past 20 years. This is not a new priority for us. It is ongoing, intentional, and embedded in our academic and advising structures. Institutions across the Commonwealth have made significant progress in moving transfer outcomes without the need for mandated pathways. While we agree we should always seek opportunities for continuous improvement, our data shows that current efforts are working. Across Kentucky's public four-year institutions, there is not a sharp difference in the number of credit hours required to graduate for Native students compared to transfer students. In the Commonwealth overall, Native students complete an average of 136.8 credit hours, while transfer students complete 145.2 credit hours. I'm sorry, 145.2. At NKU, the gap is even smaller. Transfer students from public four-year institutions complete an average of 138.4 credit hours compared to 133.4 credit hours for Native students. These outcomes demonstrate meaningful progress and reflect the tremendous effectiveness of our current transfer practices and support systems. At NKU, we also have an office dedicated solely to supporting transfer students, our Adult and Transfer Center. Each transcript is reviewed individually, allowing us to provide personalized, student-centered guidance. Our process will soon be even further enhanced and expedited with the implementation of an AI-assisted transfer tool. This addition will allow us to more quickly transfer evaluation times, helping students make decisions more knowledgeably and quickly, but will not replace our high-touch transfer student support. We have also invested in a robust, publicly available course equivalency website that right now allows students to see exactly how courses transfer from institutions across the country. These individualized approaches are critical to student success, and they require flexibility. Our concern with House Bill 94 is that the creation of a prescriptive statewide transfer pathway may unintentionally harm students rather than help them. Highly structured pathways risk being too rigid, limiting our ability to respond to individual student needs, evolving academic programs, and workforce demands that vary by region. Additionally, transfer students are not a standardized group, and their academic journeys benefit from tailored support rather than a one-size-fits-all solution. Additionally, Kentucky's universities have distinct missions, specialized programs, and faculty expertise. In closing, we appreciate the sponsor's intent and share the goal of supporting student mobility and success. However, we believe that House Bill 94 is not necessary given the progress already being made and may unintentionally hinder the flexibility and innovation that are driving improvements today. We remain eager to continue working collaboratively with the committee and Representative Grassel, and thank you for your time and consideration.
We do have, we do have some questions from members. Representative Grossell.
Thank you both for outlining your passion for transfer and your willingness to work with you. You've both articulated everything that your institutions have done to make it easy for students and counselors and parents to go to your websites and find out what would transfer. And so my question for you is, why are you opposed to having a one-stop shop where students, counselors, and everyone else can see if that they can start at any of these institutions, like in the Louisiana example that we presented on in December, and then they can transfer to any of these institutions? It gives students more options and saves students and families time from having to go to each of your institutions' individual websites, find the information, and compare notes across all of those. I mean, they would have to have their own Excel spreadsheet essentially to track it and track their options. We're trying to make this easier for everyone.
I don't think we're against a common kind of bringing all of those resources together. I think the mandated pathways are a little different than that. I mean, I think all of the institutions, at least who have spoken today, are part of that online, publicly available website so you can see. So having a place that would combine some of those, I think is definitely worth discussing. I think the challenge we're seeing is that mandated specific pathways, that's a slightly different process.
May I follow up briefly?
Very briefly.
None of this is mandated. That was made very clear, and that is why in this year's version of the bill, you are able to opt in or opt out of every single pathway. So you're misspeaking when you say that anyone, CPE or otherwise, is trying to mandate you to do anything other than come to the table for discussion.
Next question is from Representative Bratcher.
Thank you, Chair. This is more for Jennifer from Western. I just want to say I've observed your pathway, having a child go through it that attended a community college, and they had laid out exactly what classes. If you get this degree, these are the classes that we accept. These are the ones we don't accept. In fact, they would sign a contract explaining that they agree to taking these classes so that they will transfer and there will be no hindrance in their process. So I have to say that process was pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one quick question while I've got you at the table. We've been talking primarily public to public in Kentucky. Are there any unique challenges when it's a private to public transfer or an out-of-state institution to a Kentucky institution?
I can follow up with that. I'm not as familiar with our process on that. However, I do think that general transfer website we've talked about includes, I know for a fact it does include throughout the country different universities, and I think private institutions are included on that too. But I don't have the data in front of me of what it looks the private to the public.
So I can tell you, I have our data right here that I sent to the committee last night or yesterday afternoon. So looking at others, so I guess that would mean like our private institutions. The difference there is about 6 credit hours, and I don't know the reason for that, but I'm happy to dig into that a little bit more with our people and see if they can figure out why that is. As far as outside of Kentucky, it is a little bit bigger gap there, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. Obviously, we don't work with out-of-state institutions on transfer specifically, and so it's, no, I don't love that their credit hours are higher. I wish that we could, figure that out, and maybe that's something that we can definitely work on, and I think that we will be committed to working on. But I think that one positive that I can say is, we've had 294 students from outside of the state come to Kentucky, come to transfer just to WKU alone. And I think that is good for, hopefully those students stay here and they become members of our community. So, but I'm happy to look into that a little bit more for you.
That is certainly something we want to encourage. Thank you for your testimony. We have one more individual who's signed up. That would be Noah Young with the Kentucky Student Rights Coalition. So Noah, please come forward. Identify yourself for the record, Noah, and I will administer an oath to you.
Noah Young, Kentucky Student Rights Coalition.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed, Noah.
Chairman Tipton and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of House Bill 94, sponsored by Representative Grossell. I want to thank Travis and Reagan at CPE and Representative Grossell. I'm not sure how I can make a better case for the bill, but I'm going to try. As you've heard, as I just said, my name is Noah Young, the General Assembly Liaison for the Kentucky Student Rights Coalition. I'm a third-year law student at the University of Louisville Brandeis School of Law. I'm a current Student Bar Association member, a former resident assistant, and a former student government speaker. House Bill 94 addresses a problem that many Kentucky families only discover after it costs them time, money, or a degree. Across the Commonwealth, students earn college credits in good faith. Some begin with dual credits in high school, like I did. Others start at KCTCS to manage affordability. Many students transfer institutions because of life circumstances or changing costs. These students are doing exactly what we encourage them to do, but too often their credits do not follow them. I want to emphasize this point. Current statute allows CPE to develop guidelines for credit transfers, but it does not give CPE the authority to establish a clear, consistent foundation for how credits must transfer statewide. That gap creates inconsistencies across campuses and programs, and students ultimately pay the price. I found that out with many instances as a resident assistant, having to evict individuals many, many times. When credits don't transfer, students take extra semesters, delay graduation, take unplanned gaps, or leave higher education altogether. That delays entry into the workforce, increases student debt, and drives up costs for the Commonwealth as students remain enrolled longer. This problem has been well documented. In 2022, the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that public universities often fail to provide transparent information about the true cost of attendance and how credits transfer, often leading students to make uninformed and costly decisions. To their credit, CPE and our institutions have recognized this problem and have begun working together. Under the leadership of Dr. Quarles, KCTCS has partnered with four-year institutions to create clear transfer pathways. That collaboration matters, it's very important, but the gaps still remain, and students continue to fall through them. House Bill 94 will close these gaps. By establishing a formal statewide transfer pathway, Kentucky will empower students with a common course numbering system, a guaranteed general education completion for associate degree requirements, and ensure transparency when curriculum changes affect transferability. That point is really crucial as well. Most importantly, HB 94 strengthens the expectation that our universities collaborate not in isolation, but as a system. CPE are the practitioners that we just heard about. They are the ones that can do this. This bill creates a better, more predictable process for students and a stronger, more efficient higher education system for Kentucky. Lastly, I think that if universities are serious about retaining and attracting students, particularly low-income and rural Kentuckians, it would be prudent for them to join us on the support of this bill. Thank you, and I respectfully ask for your support in House Bill 94, and I'd be happy to ask any questions or answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any members have any questions? I see none. Thank you for being here. It is not often that we have an hour of discussion during session for discussion only, but I think this is good. We've had good conversation. And this morning's discussion has reminded me of the story that Senator Jimmy Higdon told me when I first got elected. Senator Higdon said, making legislation is a lot like making sausage. It's not a very pretty process, but you hope you have a good product at the end. So I am hopeful that we can, all the parties, we can work together and come up with a good public policy that's beneficial for the Commonwealth and for our students. Thank you. Members, we will not meet at 11:30 next week. We will meet at our regular scheduled time. But thank you for your participation. The meeting is adjourned.